Space, the final frontier. How many people, show of hands, have watched Star Trek and thought, how cool would it be to fly on a Starship Enterprise throughout the galaxy, explore different planets, and do it in a safe environment? We're not quite there yet, but we have companies that are looking to accomplish the goal of getting tourists in space within the next couple of years. When I started researching on the NASA website about space travel and tourism, I learned a lot about the history, the personnel and equipment required, and what companies are doing what today to be able to accomplish this goal. When we look at the history, the 1960s is where it started for the United States. We had 3 different missions that were set up. The first one was Mercury. That goal was to get a human in space, orbit the Earth, and come back safely. The second mission was for Gemini. That goal was to get the human in space again for 14 days or more and see what the effects are of being in space for a longer period of time. And then they also, in that mission, were trying to get different ideas on re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Lastly was the Apollo missions, which that was our reach for the moon target, which we accomplished with the Apollo 11 mission. Over the next few decades would bring us to where we are now. So when we look at the 70s, Richard Nixon announced that we would create the space shuttle. That would be our primary means of transport to and from space. 1981, it was created, and that's when the flight starts. And then we had, in 1984, the first U.S. non-government astronaut was put into space. In the 1990s, we had a company called Space Adventures, still around today, who was set up specifically to put civilians in space, generally working with the Russians at that point. In 1998, the International Space Station was starting to be built. And then in the 2000s, we actually had 7 civilians pay their way to get to the International Space Station. It wasn't cheap, but they made it. And then Blue Origin was created by Jeff Bezos, and then Richard Branson created Virgin Galactic, and in that decade. In the 2010s, we had SpaceX and Rocket Lab come out specifically for space tourism, and then in 2011 is when the actual space shuttle program was shut down. So now that we understand the timeline and the history a little bit, let's see what we need to be able to run this thing with people and equipment. So the primary equipment that we need is going to be, you got to be able to live and breathe up in the space. You got to have the rockets and you got to have rockets and engines to be able to maneuver when you're up there. You got to have the spacecraft. Navigation and communications is very important. And then you got to have that heat shield technology when returning to Earth. For personnel, you got to have scientists, astronomers, physicists. You need all kinds of different engineers, technicians, as well as the astronauts themselves. And so now that we know a little bit about the history, the equipment and personnel, where are we at today? Well, we have hundreds of different companies that are in the game of space travel. But the primary players that are doing transportation are going to be Blue Origin, SpaceX, Boeing, and Virgin Galactic. Boeing and SpaceX are going to be doing orbital travel and various space missions. Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin are set to do suborbital travel strictly for passengers and space tourism. When we look at accommodations, there's Sierra Nevada Corp. They've been a private company for a long time. They believe that there's going to be an economy up in the suborbit, and so they're creating space taxis and stations. There's another company called Orion Span who's looking to put up a space hotel, actually in 2022. And then Space Adventures, again, they're still around. They're still brokering deals to put people in space. And so, so when we look at all of these things, in closing, these companies are showing and proving that we're getting closer and closer to this goal of achieving space tourism. And what I would like to do is leave everybody with a quote by Walter Elliott. Perseverance is not a long race. It is many short races, one after another. Thank you.